This is the report of Group 1, and I will present to you the objectives. A. Context of contextual analysis of selected primary resources. B. Identifications of the historical importance of the text. C. Examinations of the author, main argument and the point of view. And these are the learning outcomes. Identify the credible or authentic primary resources that could be used in reconstructing and analyzing the history of a Filipino people from the pre-colonial times to the present. Second is, analyze the context, content, and perspective of the different kinds of primary resources and determine how they affect history in the Filipino people. Third is, develop critical and analysis skills as they are exposed to primary resources. The first voyage around the world by Antonio Pigafetta is the narrative of the cartographic record, the discovery of explorations of the early history. This book was taken from the chronicles of the contemporary voyagers and navigators of the 16th century. One of them was an Italian, nobleman Antonio Pigafetta, who accompanied Ferdinand Magellan in his faithful circumnavigations of the Pigafetta's work instantly became a classic and prominent literary man in the West like William Shakespeare, Michel de Montaigne, and Gian Vista Veco. First of Fernando Magellan, Spanish Fernando de Magallanes or Hernando de Magallanes, was born on February 3, 1418, Sardusa or Porto or Portugal, then in April 27, 1521.
Mactan, Philippines.
He is a Portuguese navigator and explorer who sailed under the flag of both Portugal, 1503 to 13, and Spain, 1519 to 21. From Spain, he sailed around South America, discovering the Strait of Magellan, and crossed the Pacific. Through he was killed in the Philippines, one of his ships continued westward to Spain, accomplishing the first circumnavigations of Earth. The voyage was successfully terminated by Basque navigator Juan Sebastian del Cano.
Antonio Pigafetta. He was a famous Italian traveler. He was born in Vicenza around 1940 and died in the same city in 1534. He also known by the name of Antonio Lombardo or Francisco Antonio Pigafetta. He was initially linked to the Order of Rhodes, which was knight, went to Spain in 1519, accompanied by Monsignor Francisco Chiricato. He was made available from Carlos V to promote the company initiated by the Catholic monarchs in Atlantic. He traveled with the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan and his group by order of the first King Charles of Spain on their voyage around the world. His work became a classic that prominent literary men in the West like William Shakespeare, Michael de Montaigne, and Gian Battista Vico referred to the book in their interpretation of the New World. His account was also a major reference to the events leading to Magellan's arrival in the Philippines. His encounter with local leaders, his death in the hands of Lapu-Lapu forces in the Battle of Mactan, and in the departure of what was left of Magellan's fleet from the islands.
First voyage around the world. Narrative. Ferdinand Magellan. He is a Portuguese navigator who transferred his allegiance to Spain through King Charles. He was sent to lead an expedition of 5 ships with 237 men. On August 10, 1519, the ships departed from Port Sibyl.
After a long journey, On March 16, 1521, Magellan sighted the island of Samar and he named as the archipelago of Saint Lazarus. It was discovered on the feast day of said saint, later applied to the entire archipelago. Upon arrival in Cebu, Magellan befriended the chieftain and erected a cross of the natives to adore every day. Then, he proceeded to the island of Mactan, where he met his death from Lapu-Lapu and his men. With heavy hearts, the crew of two remaining ships, Trinidad and Victoria, left the archipelago and returned to Spain. Passing through Portugal, the ship Trinidad was confiscated by the Portuguese. Only the ship Victoria successfully reached their origin and completed the circumnavigation of the world. One of the few crew members who returned to Spain, Antonio Pigafetta, who wrote the Chronicles of Magellan Expedition, a narrative and cartographic record of their journey, including 2,300 watercolor charts from Patagonia to Indonesia, from Philippines to the Cape of Good Hope. Pigafetta's The First Voyage Around the World is a classic of discovery and exploration literature. The readings regarding The First Voyage Around the World was from Antonio Pigafetta, 1969. First Voyage Around the World, Manila Filipiniana Book Guild, as follows.
The First Voyage Around the World by Antonio Pigafetta. Thereupon, the Captain General in Warp went ashore with 40 armed men who burned some 40 or 50 houses together with many boats and killed 7 men. He recovered the small boat and we departed immediately, pursuing the same course. Before we landed, some of our sick men begged us if we should call any man or woman to bring the entrails to them as they would recover immediately. When we rounded any of these people with our personal shops, which was completely through the loins from one side to another, they looking at it, fold on the shop now on this and now on that side, and then drew it up with great astonishment and sighed. Others who were wounded in the breast did the same, which moved us to great compassion. Those people, seeing us departing, followed us with more than 100 boats for more than 1 league. They approached the ships showing us fish, feeling that they will give them to us, but then threw stones at us and fled. And although the ships were under full sail, the fast, the 20, and the small boats are faster astern. Very ironically, in the small boats of theirs, we saw some women in their boats who were crying out and tearing their hair for love, I believe, of those whom we had killed. Each one of these people lives according to his own will, for they have no seigneur. They go naked, and some are bearded and have tied black hair that reaches to the waist. They wear small farm leaf hats as do the Albanians. They are as tiny, but are born white. Their teeth are red and black, for they think that is most beautiful. The women go naked except that they wear a narrow skirt or bark as thin as paper, which grow between the tree and the bark of the palm before previous. They are good looking and delicately formed and lighter complexion than the men, and wear their hair, which is exceedingly black, loose and hanging quite down to the ground. The women do not work in the fields, but stay in the house, weaving mats, baskets, and other things needed in their houses. From palm leaves, they eat coconuts, camotes, birds, figs 1 palm in length or bananas, sugarcane, and flying fish, beside other things. They anoint the body and the hair with coconut and benistered oil. Their houses are all built of wood, covered with planks and thatched with leaves of the fig tree or banana tree. 2 fathoms long, and they have floors and windows. The rooms and the beds are all furnished with the most beautiful palm leaf mats. These live on the palm straw, which is very soft and fine. They use no weapons, except a kind of a spear-pointed reed at the end. Those people are poor, but ingenious and very chievous, on account of which we call those 3 islands the island of Landrone. Their amusement, men and women, is to flog the seas with those small boats of theirs, Those both resemble lucerne but are narrower, and some are black, some white, and others red. At the side opposite the sail, they have a larger piece of wood pointed at the top. With poles laid across, it's unresting in the water in order that the boat may sail more safely. The sail is made from palm leaves joined together and is shaped like a Latin sail. For ruders, they use a certain blade resembling a hurt shovel which have a piece of wood at the end. They can change turn and bow at will. And those boats resemble the dolphin which live in the water from wave to wave. Those Londoners thought, according to the sign which they made, that there were no other people in the world but themselves. At dawn on Saturday, March 16, 1521, we came upon a high land at a distance of 300 leagues from the islands of London, an island named Samal or Samar. The following day, the Captain General desired to land on another island which was uninhabited and lay to the right and the above-mentioned island. In order to be more secure and to get water and have some rest, he had two tents set up in the shore for the sick and had a soakfield for them. On Monday afternoon, March 18, we saw a boat coming toward us with 9 men in it. Therefore, the Captain General ordered that no one should move or say a word without his permission. When those men reached inshore, their ship went immediately to the Captain General, giving sign of joy because of our arrival. 5 of the most ornately adorned of them remained with us, while the rest went to get some others who were fishing, and so they all came. The Captain General, seeing that they were reasonable men, ordered food to be set before them, and gave them red caps, mirrors, comb, bells, ivory, boccasin, and other things. When they saw the captain courtesy, they presented fish, a jar of palm wine which they call oraka or arak, figs more than 1 palm long or bananas, and other which were smaller and more delicate, and 2 coconuts. They had nothing else then but made sign with their hands that they will bring omai or rice and coconuts and many other articles of food within 4 days. Coconut are the fruit of the palm tree, just as we have bread, wine, oil, and vinegar. So these people get everything from the tree. They get wine in the following manner. They bore a hole into the heart of the same palm at the top called palmetto, from which distills a liquor which resembles white mist. That liquor is sweet but somewhat tart and is gathered or in plates of bamboo as thick as the leg and thicker. They fasten the bamboo to the tree at evening for the morning, and in the morning for the evening. That palm bears a fruit, namely the coconut, which is as large as the head or thereabouts. Its outside hooks is green and thinner than 2 fingers. Certain filaments are found in that hooks, which is made cord of for binding together their boats. Under that, there is a hand shell. There is a white marrow substance. 1 finger is in thickness, which they eat fresh with meat and fish as we do bread, and it has a taste resembling the almond. It could be dried and made into bread. There is a clear sweet water in the middle of that marrow substance, which is very refreshing. When that water stands for a while after having been collected, it congels and becomes like an apple. When the natives wish to make oil, they take that coconut and allow the marrow substance and the water to putrefy. Then they boil it and it becomes oil like butter. When they wish to make vinegar, they allow only the water to putrefy and then place it in the sun, and a vinegar result like that made from white wine. Milk can also be made from it for we with some. We scrape the marrow substance and then mix the scraping with its own water, which we strain through a cloth, and so obtain milk like goat's milk. This palm resembles date palms, but although not smooth, they are less nutty than the latter. A family of 10 persons can be supported on 2 trees by utilizing one of them during 1 week and the other during the other 8 days for the wine. For it, they did otherwise, the trees will dry up, they last a century.
Those people became very familiar with us. They told us many things, their names, and those of some of the island that could be seen from that place. Their island was called Zul'at, and it is not very large. We took great pleasure with them, for they were very pleasant and conversable, in order to show them greater honor. The Captain General took them to his ship and showed them all merchandise clubs, cinnamon, pepper, ginger, nutmeg, mace, gold, and all the things in the ship. He had some mortar fires for them, whereat they exhibited great fear and tried to jump out for the ship. They made signs to us that the above said article grow in that place where we were going. When they were about to retire, they took their leave very gracefully and neatly, saying that they would return according to their promise. The island where we were is called Humuno, now Humunhon. But inasmuch as we found 2 springs there of the clearest water, we called it Aquada da Leboni Signali, or called the watering place of the good site. For there, the first sign of gold which we found in those districts. We found a great quality of white coral there, and a large tree with fruit and threefold smaller than the almond, and resembling pine seeds. There are also many palms, some of them good, and other bad. There are many islands in that district, that therefore we called them the archipelago of San Lazaro, as they were discovered on the Sunday at San Lazarus, 10 degrees of latitude toward the Arctic Pole, and a longitude of 161 degrees from the line of demarcation. On Friday, March 22, those men came us. They had promised us in 2 boats with coconuts, sweet oranges, a jar of palm wine, and cokes, in order to show us there were falls that the district. They exhibited great sign of pleasure in seeing us. We purchased all those articles from them. Their senior was an old man who was painted. He wore 2 gold earrings in his ear, and the other many gold armlet on their arm, and handkerchief above their heads. We stayed there 1 week. During that time, our captain went ashore daily to visit the sick, and every morning gave them coconut water from his own hand, which comfortable them greatly. Our people living near that island earring in their ears so large that they can pass their arm through them. Those people are capre, that to say hidden. They go naked with a cloth woven from the bark of a tree above their privies, except some of the chief would who wear cotton cloths embroidered with silk at the end by means of the needle. They are dark, fat, and painted. They anoint themselves with coconut and linseed oil as protection against sun and wind. They have very black hair that falls to the waist, and use dagger, knife, and spears ornamented with gold, large shield, fascines, javelins, and fishing net that resemble retail, and their boat are like ours. On the afternoon of Holy Monday, the day of Our Lady, March 25, while we were on the point of weighing anchor, I went to the side of the ship to fish by putting my feet upon yard leading down into a storeroom. They slipped, for it was rainy, and consequently I fell into the sea, so that no one saw me. When I was all but under, my left hand happened to catch hold of the claw garnet of the mainsail, which was dangling in the water. I held too tightly, but began to cry out so loudly that I was rescued by a small boat. I was aided, I believe, indeed, through my merit, but through the mercy of that fount of charity. That same day, we shipped our course toward the west-south between 4 islands, namely Sinalo, Inahan, Aybuson, and Abarin. On Thursday morning, March 28, as we had seen a fire on an island that night before we anchored near it, we saw a small boat which a narrative called Baluto or Baruto, which 8 men in it, approaching the flagship. A slave belonging to the Captain General, who was a narrative of Sumutra, which was formerly called Taprobana, spoke to them. They immediately understood him, came alongside the ship, unwilling to enter but taking a position at some little distance. The captain, seeing that they would not trust us, threw them out a red cap and another things tied to a bit of wood. They received them very gladly and went away quickly to advise their king. About 2 hours later, we saw 2 balanghay coming. They are large boats and they're so cold. They were full of men, and king was in larger of them, being seated under the awning of mats. When the king came near the flagship, the slaves spoke him. The king understood him, for those districts that kings know more language than the other people. Ordered some of these men to enter the ship, but he always remained in his balanghay at some little distance from the ship until his own men returned. And as soon as they returned, he departed. The captain general showed greatly honor to the man who entered the ship, and gave them some presents, for which the king wished before departure to give the captain a large bar of gold and a basket full of ginger. Latter, however, thanked the king heartily, would be not accept it. In the afternoon, we went in the ship near the dwelling of the king.
Next day, Holy Friday, the Captain General sent his slave ashore in a small boat to ask the king if he had any food to have it carried to the ships, and to say that they would be well satisfied with us. For he and his men had come to the island as friends and not as enemies. The king came with 6-8 men in the same boat and entered the ships. When I reached shore, the king raised his hands toward the sky and then turned towards us too. We did the same toward him as did all the others. At every mouthful, we drank a cup of wine, the wine that was left in the cup at any time. Though that happened but rarely, was put into a jar by itself. The king's cup was always kept covered and no one else drank from it but we had the king made us sit down on a bamboo mat with our legs drawn up like tailors, and then a platter of roast fish cut in pieces was brought in and ginger freshly gathered and dried. After that, we went to the palace of the king, which was built like a high loft and was thatched with fig and palm leaves. It was built up high from the ground on huge posts of wood, and it was necessary to ascend it by means of ladders. The Captain General kept him to dine with us, and gave him many things according to their customs. He was very grandly decked out. And the finest looking man that we saw among those people, pieces of gold of the size of walnuts and eggs, are found by sifting the earth in the islands of the king, whom I led to our ships. At his side hung a dagger, the half of which was somewhat long and all of gold, and its scabbard of carved wood. He had the 3 spots of gold on every tooth, and his teeth appeared as if bound with gold. He was stony and painted all over. The island of his was called Butuan and Calagan. When those kings wished to see one another, they both went to hunt in the islands where we were. The name of the first king is Ralakulambu, and the second is Rayasiawi.
Early in the morning of Sunday, the last of March and Easter Day, the Captain General sent the prince with some men to prepare the place where the mass was to be said, together with the interpreter, to tell the king that we were not going to land in order to dine with him, but to say mass. Therefore, the king sent us 2 swine that he had killed. When the hour for mass arrived, we landed with about 50 men without their body armor, but carrying our other arms, and dressed in our best clothes. Before we reached the shore, with our boats 6 pieces were discharged as a sign of peace, we landed. The 2 king embraced the Captain General and placed him between them. We went in marching order to the place consecrated, which was not far from the shore. Before the commencement of mass, the captain sprinkled the entire bodies of the 2 kings with mock's water. During the mass, we made our offerings. The kings went forward to kiss the horse as needed, but made no offense. When the body of our Lord was almost dead, they remained on their knees and worshipped him with claps hands. The sheep fired order artillery at once when the body of Christ was elevated. The signal having been coming from the shore with muskets. After that, the conclusion of the son of Barman K-amalayan.
The captain general arrayed in a facing tournament, which is the kings were greatly pleased. Then he had a cross carried in, and in the nails and a crown, to which they made immediate reverence. He told the kings to the interpreter that they were the standards given to him by the emperor. He sovereign, so that wherever he might go, he might set up those tokens. He said that he wished to sit it up in that place for our benefits. From whenever any our ships came, he could know that we had been there by the cross, that could do nothing displease them to harm their property. If any of their men were captured, they could be set free immediately on the time behind shore. It was necessary to sit that cross on the summit of the highest mountain, so that on seeing him every morning, they might adore it, that if they did that, neither thunder, lightning, nor storm could harm them that at least. They thanked him and he said that they could do everything willingly. The captain generals also had them ask whether they were Muslim or heathen, or what was their belief. They replied that they had no other worship but reason. They clapped hands and their face to the sky, and that they called their God Abba. With the captain was very glad, and seeing that the first king raised the hands of the sky and said that he wished that he were possible to him to make the captain see in his love for him. The interpreter asked the king why there was so little in there. The latter replied that he did not leave him to the place except when he hunted and to see his brother. Why? That he lived in another island where all his family were. The captain general had him asked to declare whether he had any enemies, so that he might go with his ship to destroy them and to render them obedient to him. The king thanked him and said that he did indeed have 2 islands hostile to him, but that it was not then the reason to go there. The captain told him that if God would again allow him to return to those districts, he would do it.
The kings replied that every hour he wished the pilots were at his command. But that night the first king changed his mind, and in the morning, when we were about to depart, sent word to the captain general, asking him for leave to wait 2 days until he should have his rice harvested and other thriftless attended to. He asked the captain general to send him some men to help him, so that it might be done sooner, and said that he intended to act as our pilot himself. The captain sent him some men, but the kings ate and drank so much that they slept all the day. Some said to excuse them that they were slightly sick. Our men did nothing on that day.
The captain sent a foster son of his as ambassador to the king of Zobo with the interpreter. The interpreter replied that his master was a captain of the greatest king and prince in the world, and that he was going to discover Maluku, but that he had come slowly to visit the king because of the good report which he had heard of him from the king of Mazawa, and to buy food with his merchandise. The interpreter told the king that since his master was the captain of so great a king, he did not pay tribute to any signer in the world, and that if the king wished peace, he would have peace, but if war, instead war. Thereupon, the Muslim merchant sent to the king Kataria Chita, that is to say, look well, sire. These men are the same who have conquered Calicut, Malacca, and all India Major. If they are treated evil and worse treatment, as they have done to Calicut and Malacca. The interpreter understood it all and told the king that his master king was more powerful in me and chiefs than a king of Portugal, that he was the king of Spain and emperor of all Christians, and that if the king did not care to be his friend, he would next time so many men that they would destroy him. The Muslim related everything to the king, who thereupon said that he would deliberate with his men and would answer the captain on the following day. The king of Mazawa, who was the most influential after that king and the signer of a number of islands, went ashore to speak to the king of the great courtesy of our captain general. Thereupon, the king told him that all the captains who came to that place were wont to give presents one to the other, and asked whether our captain or he thought to commence.
Tuesday morning, the king of Muzao came to the ship with the Muslim. He saluted the captain general on behalf of the king of Zubu, and said that the king of Zubu was collecting as much food as possible to give to us, and that after dinner he would send one of his nephews and 2 others of his chief men to make a peace. The captain general had one of his men armed with his own arms, and had the Muslim told that we all fought with a manner. The Muslim was greatly frightened. But the captain told him not to be frightened, for our arms were soft toward our friends and harsh toward our enemies, and those who hate our faith. The captain did that so the Muslim, who seemed more intelligent than the others, might tell it to the king. After dinner, the king's nephew, who was the prince, came to the ship with the king of Muzawa, the Muslim, the governor, the chef, constable, and the 8 chefs, to peace with us. The captain general was seated on the red velvet chair, the principal men on leather chairs, and the others on the mats upon the floor. The captain general asked them through the interpreter whether it was their custom to speak in secret or in public, whether the prince and the king of Mizawa had authority to make a peace. They answered that they spoke in public, and that they were empowered to make peace. The captain general said many things concerning peace, and that he prayed God to confirm it in heaven. They said that they had never heard anyone speak such words, but they looked great pleasure in hearing them. The captain, seeing that they listened to answer willingly, began to advance arguments to induce them to accept faith, asking them who would succeed to seigneury of the death of the king. He was answered the king had no sons but only daughters. They said, when the fathers and mothers grew old, they received no father honor, but their children commanded them. The captain told them that the God made the sky, the earth, the sea, and everything else that he had commanded us to honor our fathers and mothers, and that whoever did otherwise was condemned to eternal fire, that were all descended from Adam and Eve, our first parents, that we have an immortal spirit, and many other things pertaining to the faith. All joyful entreated the captain to leave them 2 men, or at least one, to instruct them in the faith, and said that they would show them great honor. The captain replied to them that they would not leave them any men then, but if they wished to become Christians, our press would baptize them, and that he would next time bring press and friars who would instruct them in our faith. They answered that they would first speak to their king, and that then they would become Christians. We all wept with great joy. The captain general told them that they should not become Christians for fear or to please us, but their own free wills, and that he would not cause any displeasure to those who wished to live according to their own law, but the Christians would be better regarded and treated than the others. All cried out with one voice that they were not free will. Then the captain told them that if they become Christians, he would leave a suit of armor, for so had his king commanded him, that he could not have intercourse with their woman without committing a very great sin. Since they were Christians, the devil would no longer appear to them except the last moment of their death.
They said that they could not answer the beautiful words of the captain, but they placed themselves in his hands, that should treat them as most faithful servants. The captain embraced them, weeping and clasping one of the prince's hands and one of the king's between his own, said them by his faith in God and his sovereign, the emperor. The captain refreshments served to them, then the prince of the and the king of Mazawa presented some basket of rice, wine, goats, and fowls of captain general on behalf of their king, and asked him to pardon them. Such things were but little to give to one such as he. The captain gave the prince a white cloth of the finest linen, a red cap, some string of glass beds, and a gilded drinking water cup. Those classes are greatly appreciated in those districts. He did not give a present to the king of Mazawa, for he had already given a robe of Kambaya beside other articles. To the others, now one thing and now another. Then he sent the king of Zubu to me and one other yellow viol silk robe made in Turkish style, a fine red cup, some string of glass beds, and a silver dish, and 2 gilt drinking cups in our hands. When we reached the city, we found the king in his palace, surrounded by many people. He was seated on a palm mat on the ground with only cotton cloth before his previous and a scarf embroidered with a needle about his head, a necklace of great value hanging from his neck, and 2 large gold earrings fastened in his ears set round the precious gems. He was fat, short, and tattooed with fire in various designs. From another mat on the ground was eating turtle from eggs which were in the porcelain dishes. He had jars full of palm wine in front of him, covered with sweet smiling herbs and arranged with 4 small reeds, each jar by means which he drank. Having duly made reverence to him, and interpreter told the king that his master thanked him very warmly from his present, and that he sent this present not in return to his present, but for the intrinsic love which he bore him. We dressed him in the robe, placed the cup on his bed, and gave him the other things. Then kissing the beds and putting them upon his head, I presented them to him. He, doing the same, accepted him. Then the king had us eat some of those eggs and drink through those slender reeds. The other his men told him that place the words of captain concerning peace in his exhortation to them to become Christian. The king wished to have us stay supper with him, but we told him they could not stay then, having taken our life of him, and prince took us with him to his house, where 4 young girls were playing instrument, one on a drum like we do, but resting on the ground. The second was striking 2 suspended metallic picks alternately with a stick wrapped somewhat thickly in the end of a palm cloth, the third one larger going the same manner, and the last 2 small gongs held in her hand by striking one against the other, which give forth sweet sound. In that island are found dogs, cats, rice, millet, panicum, sorgo, ginger, figs, orange, lemon, sugarcane, garlic, honey, coconuts, magnas, kirch, flesh of many kinds, palm wine, and gold. It is a large island and has a good port and 2 entrances, one of the west and other was northern S. It lies in 10 degrees of latitude toward the Arctic Pole in the longitude of 164 degrees from the line of demarcation. Its name is Zubu. We heard of Maluku, therefore that of Captain General. Those people play in violin with copper string.